everyone, and welcome to the final episode of Season 3 of the Hearts Afire Podcast. For today's episode, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the Blauvelt Dominican Associate Program with our guest, Cathy McCann. Before we get to our discussion, I'd like to remind you that whether you're watching this episode live, listening to it on a podcast, make sure to never miss an episode by clicking the subscribe button now. We appreciate your support of the Hearts Afire Podcast. Now on to today's discussion with guest Cathy McCann, and who I'd like to welcome and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Katie, and good morning to everyone.
So, Cathy, let's dive right into it. What is the Blauvelt Dominican Associate Program, and how did you first become aware of it?
Well, the Associate Program is a program for lay women and men who want to deepen their own faith and want to also support the Sisters of St. Dominic here in Blauvelt. It also, it's a way of us being part of their community and supporting them in their missions and to grow in our own faith. So sharing in their mission, seeking peace and justice in our world through all that we do. So, and we do that through their prayer, their study, joining in community opportunities, masses and things, and also in their ministries. And many lay people also have their own ministries going.
Very nice. And what made you decide to join the Blauvelt Dominican Associate Program?
I guess I've been a Dominican since birth, since my aunt was a Dominican. And back in 1984, she told me about it when a program was just being talked about and started. But at that time, I wasn't ready. I wasn't there. I was already involved in ministry in another place. So a few years later, I joined with one of the associates, Linda Rudder, who invited me to come to a small gathering of sisters and associates down in East Rutherford, New Jersey. And so it gave me a deeper understanding of what it was all about, of their time of prayer, sharing scripture and laughter and joy too. So it was a great opening. And so then I became an associate, and it's just a great group of women and men.
And for those listeners who might not know, who was your aunt in the Dominican congregation?
My aunt was Sister Concilio May. I know her as Aunt Nora, but it was Concilio May.
Okay, very nice. And what kind of ministry was she in?
She was a teacher and principal in schools. She taught math, was her big teaching, but she was also principal in Christ the King twice. And she was also in St. Charles Borromea in Staten Island. And then she worked at Dominican College, too, for a while.
So she's been everywhere in a few of the most
Yes,
popular...
and she was in leadership for several years, too. So for 6 years.
So I actually never knew that. That's great.
Yeah.
Great to know. So you've been a member for how long of the Dominican Associate Program?
I actually made my commitment in 1991.
Wow.
Several years ago, 21 years, right? So it's been a great experience. And I couldn't always make everything because I was in my own ministry and my own job, which I felt was my mission. I worked for the Community Food Bank of New Jersey, which took a lot of my time. But whenever I could, I made myself part of the community there. Whether meeting with small group, the small group in East Rutherford that used to meet once a month, and we used to share a meal together. We broke bread, and then we shared the scriptures, and again, we shared laughter too. It was a nice social group.
So just touching on your ministry just for a brief moment, I know during COVID, we talked about this in the past, how you were kind of called back to your ministry. If you just want to tell our listeners, briefly, about your ministry and how you kind of went back into it during COVID to help out.
With the food bank, I had retired 2017, I retired. So just before the pandemic. And then during the pandemic, I helped to bring food pantries throughout the state together to coordinate the needs. And so that some pantries were closed because of COVID, some pantries were open, and how could we coordinate and make sure that where those holes were, where there was a food insecurity, that we could make sure that food got there. So we coordinated the state through a group called New Jersey VOAD. We coordinated all the pantries in the state and then listed them all, and where there was special distributions that the food bank was doing.
Yeah, I remember this conversation very well when we discussed it. I think it was last year. And just, I wanted to make sure listeners knew about the difference you were making for the people in New Jersey.
Well, it's not just me, it was everybody. I was safe in my home doing these through Zoom calls, but most people were out there doing what they needed to do, to get food to people.
And all of you made such a difference.
Yes.
And kind of, shifting back to the Dominican Associate Program, you've been a member since 1991. So what's your role now within the program?
Right now, I'm called the Director of Associates, but I really work with a team. Mary Lou Cull and Maureen Zeiss are also team members, and we kind of work together to try to have programs or make sure that we're keeping people involved, which was a challenge during the pandemic, since we couldn't get up to the Mother House. The Mother House was closed down, and yet we wanted to make sure that we kept the program and kept in touch with people. So we started, at the beginning of the pandemic, we started a weekly call just to keep in touch. So we had a prayer every Wednesday night during the pandemic for that first year, just about. And we would share a little scripture, or we would share a story somebody had, and it kind of rotated and was different kind of every week. But we made sure that we were praying for people, and we invited all the associates to take part of it. And so when people could, they did. And we also invited associates from other communities, Dominican communities like Spark Hill and Amityville and Hope.
Wow, I didn't know that it was expanded to the other associate programs. That's great to know. And what are some of your favorite memories as a Blauvelt Dominican Associate?
Well, certainly as a child, before the associates, it was the festival was always a great thing. It was always a place of joy and happiness and meeting people and reuniting with people and the sisters. And that's always a great thing. And I know it will be different, but it was always a home day, a family day. So some of the other things I would say as retreats, sometimes we've been invited to retreats with the sisters, but the associates also from these different communities from Spark Hill, we would go up to their place in New York State, at Saratoga. They had a place. I don't think they have it anymore, but associates all together went up there, and some sisters, and we would have a retreat there. We've also done it in Ventnor when Ventnor was opened. And so we would invite them down to our place. And so any associates that could make it could come. And some of it was just walking on the boardwalk, or, taking walks out in the forest or anything. So it was just a relaxing time, and a time for prayer together too. So those are always great memories. When we gather with the sisters at the Mother House for celebrations, for jubilees, and even for funerals and things like that, when we can be together, it's always really, really wonderful. So, and I think also since the pandemic, that first year we met every Wednesday, and now we still continue to meet once a month and share scripture. We share this readings for this next following Sunday together. And it's very informal, and, people join when they can join, and if they can't, they can't. So we do it the first Wednesday of every month.
That's lovely. And so, we're talking about the program. So who can join the Blauvelt Dominican Associate Program, and why should people consider joining the program?
Well, I think anyone who's really seeking to deepen their own faith and grow in that faith. Sometimes we don't get that at our own churches. We don't get that deeper. It's an hour a week, and we don't really get to sit and talk individually or together in small groups. And I think that's really important. And I think that's where The associate program is really wonderful because it does help deepen your faith and really to follow the lead of the sisters of their mission of bringing peace and justice to the world, some subjects that are never talked about in church. I think is just really helps you grow as a person and make this a more just world. And I think that's really very important. We're right now working on Laudato Si, and that's really an important thing in this world. And we're not hearing that in the churches either. And I think this is a place where the sisters really lead, and they allow us to be partners with them.
And for anyone who's listening who might not know what Laudato Si is, how would you describe it in 1 to 2 sentences?
Laudato Si is really caring for the earth. It's the Pope's encyclical, but it's about caring for our earth and being more responsible for our next generations and making improvements on caring about our earth and what's happening to it.
And this is a question that I would like to know from you. What has being a Blauvelt Dominican Associate meant to you personally?
I've just made some wonderful friends. It's I really feel like I've grown in my faith. I've grown in my confidence in some respects, and I just the hospitality here at Dominican in Blauvelt is just it's not something you see anyplace, even in church. You just don't see that kind of hospitality. You're always greeted. People are always praying for you. You're praying for them. It's really just a really great relationship between sisters and associates. And one of the things we also do with the sisters sometimes is we have events up at the mother house for some of the older sisters, and just going in there and sharing pizza or something like that. It's just a gift. It really is a gift for them, maybe, but for us especially. We certainly come away with more than we give. Excuse me.
Absolutely. And final question for you today, Cathy. How can people learn more about the Blauvelt Dominican Associate Program? Say if someone was potentially interested in becoming an associate, what's the best way for someone to do that?
Well, I think the best way would be to go to our website and visit the website, and and my email is there, and they could contact me. We can have a conversation. They can email me, and I'll get back to them. We can meet and have a conversation. We can do it over the phone. We're very open to having people just even join us. We have someone who's wants to be an associate now, who's being part of sometimes we invite her to be part of our community days, or just to really get a feel of what it's like and understand, so that it's not so scary. This is a non-vowed commitment, and it's we all lead our own lives. We go home to our own houses, but yet we're invited to be part of the sisters' lives too, and that's just a real gift.
And something else to note: you don't need to necessarily live right next to Blauvelt to be a Blauvelt Dominican Associate.
No, absolutely not. Our new candidate is from South Jersey here. And we have someone that just inquired that I emailed back, who is from California. So there are Dominican associates throughout the country. And one of the things we are working towards is that all of these, because there's fewer and fewer sisters in the communities are looking at gathering together. And they do more things together. And so all of the associates are doing the same thing. And we're part of a National Dominican Associate Leadership. I'm part of that. And so we meet on a regular basis, and we share retreats and talks and lessons and things like that other associates are putting together, and we do it all by Zoom. So it doesn't matter where you are in the country. That Zoom really has made us much closer Dominican community throughout the country.
That's great. And I just want to thank you for joining us today. And we look forward to the next time that you'll be able to be on the Hearts Afire podcast. And again, for anyone listening at home, if you'd like to learn more about the Blauvelt Dominican Associate Program, you could contact Cathy directly by emailing cbmm, cbmm785@gmail.com. Again, that's cbmm785@gmail.com, or visiting www.opblauvelt.org/associates. So, Cathy, thank you again for joining us. I know you are a very busy woman, and I look forward to seeing you in the future.
Well, thank you, Katie, for all you do, and I hope people feel free to call and or to email and get in touch with us. So
it's an open invitation if you want to learn more about
anytime.
Yes, if you want to learn more about the program, you are seeing the face behind the program. So Cathy is always open for any questions. So
just one of the many faces.
Have a good one, Cathy. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And before we go, I'd like to remind you that if you enjoyed today's discussion, please let us know by giving the Hearts Afire podcast a 5-star rating wherever you listen to your podcast. And we hope that you enjoyed season 3 of the Hearts Afire podcast. And we want you to be on the lookout for season 4 of the Hearts Afire podcast, which will be coming to you likely in November of this year. Thank you again for tuning in today. And please know that you are in the daily prayers of our sisters and associates.